Kakadosh Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Just wanted to take a break from the Halachot Shabbat. I just wanted to bring something that was brought to my attention. Two different halachot. Number one has to do with fish. So we have mentioned in the past that whenever you're going to buy fish that does not have ashkacha on it, so you always have to make sure that it has scales. Because once it has the scales, for sure it's going to have the fins, and therefore it's going to be kosher. There does exist of buying fish, which is called a patch on, which means that you could just buy it already in a fillet style, but as long as it has the patch and you're able to check that part of this fish, that patch has the scales, so therefore obviously you know that the rest of it as well has scales. So therefore there won't be a problem, and then you could buy it with the majority of the skin already peeled off. There is one heter to do with buying fish without scales, and that is basically fresh salmon or frozen salmon. If you're going to buy salmon and it's going to be in a place which is going to be, for example, like Costco, right, Walmart, or all these big supermarkets where we do not suspect that they're going to come because of their reputation, and they're going to start switching, and because of the texture, the color of the salmon is the only fish which you could buy without fins or scales, or just basically just fillets of salmon. That is the only thing, but you cannot buy, whether it's going to be tilapia or dennis or any other types of fish, without the scales. That is very, very important. So that's going to be number one, to remember that first of all that it's only the salmon, the fresh salmon that you could buy, right? Or also they sell it also frozen. Salmon in itself is going to be permitted. Other than salmon, you cannot buy any other type of a fish without the scales. If it's bought without the scales, it's bechizkat that it's not kosher. Remember that? Very, very important. So that's going to be halakha number one. Halakha number two just happened very recently. And again, it could still be a mistake. We're still actually in the middle of verifying it. We bought from Costco these types of chips that it had kosher dairy, kafke dairy. It's a jalapeno type of a thing. And immediately somebody comes to me and he tells me, Rabbi, it doesn't say anything about dairy in the ingredients, so therefore obviously it's okay. So I went and I told them that it happened to me already once before here in America with something which is called Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is something which is written on it, it's OUD, and it's written on it lactose free and dairy free and everything else free that you want, right? But it's everything but free. So what happened is that I went and I called up the company. I told them, listen, can you just explain to me what's going on? I tell them, here it's written lactose free and dairy free. If I'm allergic to milk and I have this, are you sure there's no problems or if I'm not going to take you to court if something happens to me? So they automatically, what do? They take off themselves. No, ask your doctor. They want to throw it on your doctor instead of them going to court. But I told them, I don't understand. If it's written dairy free, I can have it. Is that correct? So he said, no, fine. I had to call up the OU. The OU went and they told me that Behemet, it does have 100% dairy. Nisiu with the chalba, it's 100% dairy. So then I had to call back the company, and I was trying to go back and forth to find out what's going on. And they basically explained to me that it's not just some dairy equipment, because the OU stopped writing on the majority of things dairy equipment, because for them there's no nafkamina. For Ashkenazim, nat bar nat is only for Sfaradim, not for Ashkenazim. Noten tam bar noten tam, which means a second derivative of taste. So because of that, the Ashkenazim, they stopped writing OUDE, just OUD, because for them, it doesn't actually there's no differences. However, for us, there is a difference, right? That you're actually able to even eat it, right? Even after meat, there's no problem whatsoever. So now what happens now is as follows. So I went back to the company, and they went back and was going back and forth until finally they told me that they actually chemically altered the milk until finally what happened was that the FDA does not consider it milk anymore. So therefore, once the FDA does not consider milk, they could write down that it's dairy-free and lactose-free. But for us, it's 100% milk. Now you're going to tell me, yeah, but there's bitul. Okay, fine, but which means I cannot come and put this coffee mate in my coffee to be mevatel the milk that's inside the coffee mate, especially that the milk there is going to give you taste. And therefore, there's a machloket in Yoreh De'ah. Do we say davar David al-Taima is going to be batel afilu be'elef? Something only has to be charif, right? Only something which is going to be spicy, or something that's even normal. So therefore, what happened is that it's going to be problematic. So what I did is I started the investigation. Why? Because people are very quick to assume, listen, it doesn't say anything about dairy, so it's going to be part of it. There's no problem. They're going to come. They're going to start eating it in a meaty meal, and it's going to be a problem. So the first thing that you do is you call up the kafke. So I call up the kafke. They didn't even let me tell them the product. They told me, listen, very carefully. He says, it's either by us, it's either going to be written parve, it's going to be written dairy, or it's going to be written dairy equipment. That's the way it is. I tell you, so it's written dairy equipment. I said, yes. So I said, so if it's not written dairy, he goes to me, listen, I thought I told you I was very, very clear over the phone. One more time. If it's written dairy, there's something dairy there. So we checked the other products of the same brand. I forgot now the brand name. We still have it in the kitchen. And there, it is written on some of them parve, and it's written dairy. So therefore, obviously, it wasn't just stam. So I call back the company. And now you tell the company, listen, lactose intolerant, somebody could die, allergies, whatever you want. I want to find out, does it have dairy? They come, they look in the ingredients. The majority of the people that are on the phone, they themselves don't understand anything, what's written in there anyway. So they come and they tell you, no, it's not written anything dairy. I say, okay, but there's a kosher symbol, and there it says dairy. It says vegan, but it says dairy. There's obviously a problem here. She herself, she didn't understand how to answer me, and there's no answer. So again, could there be a mistake in the printing? There could always be a mistake. Maybe the ashkacha came, but to assume so easily, right, that it's going to be parve if it's not written ingredients is 100% incorrect, because many times it could actually be written there, or they don't have to write 2%, and many times it could be written, and sometimes it just says may contain a trace of milk. Sometimes they do it just to protect themselves, but sometimes they actually do have it, and it does have milk, and it's there to actually give the taste. So therefore, a person should be very, very careful when you're going out on the market, obviously, not to assume things. Remember, assuming is very problematic. If you see something that's going to be, even if it's an OUD, many people, they ask me, right away I tell them, if you want to find out is dairy equipment or not, the only ones that are going to be able to tell you is the OU. So you call up the OU and you find out. I cannot guess according to what's written or not. You have to be there at the factory, you have to be seeing what's going on, and then you could determine what exactly is going on. There's no neviut here, there's no prophecy. We're not nevi'im that we could say, you know what, this one I think is only dairy equipment, and this one they're actually doing it with true dairy or not. Usually it's correct, the majority of almond milk is dairy free, that is dairy equipment. Again, that is usually, but if you're going to ask, I will never tell you that you could rely upon assumption. You call up and you find out. That is the general rule in kashrut, to make sure that you're eating kosher. Because if not, you have problems, whether it's going to be basar v'chalav, whether it's going to be other things as well, that a person should be very, very careful. Remember, Rav David Avuchatzira said that even if people in Eretz Yisrael, we're not going to be makpidim on Chalav Yisrael, in Chutz La'aretz it should be even more makpid than Chalav Yisrael. And the reason why is because in Chutz La'aretz, like the Gemara in Ketuvot said at the end, that since we have a lot of problems, much more problems of emunah, the opposite. We have to actually strengthen ourselves in all these things in order to strengthen our emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore to be very, very careful that we are makpidim, whether it's going to be on Chalav Yisrael and all the other things that we have, in order that we make sure that we're eating kosher. Remember, by kashrut, kashrut is the first thing to do with Baalet Shuvah, or anybody that wants to do Teshuvah. The first thing is always kashrut. Because the person, the second that he has kashrut and he's eating kosher, all the rest, their heart is open to everything else, and therefore they're able to grow in Torah Nirat Shamayim. But if they're eating not kosher, there's nothing what to do with them. Forget about it. It's just like Bracha Levatala, because no matter how much you're going to come and you're going to give them of Torah, their lev is metumtam, as the Torah already says, right? What does that mean? You become a cheftzadi, so you become what you eat, and therefore your heart is closed off and you won't be able to grow in Torah Nirat Shamayim.